We are in Proverbs chapter 11, verse 8, and we just want to make mention that all the Proverbs work together. And of course they would. You have a proverb that is a saying of the wise and another proverb that's a saying of the wise, where they're both wise. They're not going to contradict each other. They're going to work together. And as we have pointed out, the Proverbs are not listed randomly. That there are running themes, more than just wisdom and folly. There are running themes. And while we can take out a proverb and just use it on its own, there are other proverbs that would help in that bit of wisdom. There are other proverbs. And certain ones we can have a misunderstanding about, and we've already discussed one in particular, concerning that of the wealth of the or the riches of the wealthy man is his fortress. We talked about that, and that it is so close to, it's just right next to other proverbs that concerning spiritual matters, that it could not mean literal material wealth. It has to mean something else. Now, you could take it for material wealth, but there's more to it than that. Now, we are coming to Proverbs chapter 11, verse 8, and we just want to look at this. The righteous is delivered from trouble, and the wicked walks to it instead. Okay? So, the righteous is delivered out of these things. The wicked go right into it. And we could look at places such as the book of Esther, Esther chapter 7 and verse 10, where we have the wicked man in that book, Haman, who is plotting to eliminate the Jews and has no idea, not even the first clue, that the queen is Jewish. He has no idea, and he believes that he has everything worked out. Nothing can go wrong. He's got the king who's backing him on this, and all of a sudden the news hits him, and the full realization, she's Jewish, and she's got the ear of the king, and this isn't going to go well. And the very gallows that he had built for Mordecai is going to him. He's going to be the one hanging from it. We can also go to places like Psalm chapter 7. Let me get over there quickly. Psalm 7 and beginning in verse 15. He made a pit and dug it out, and has fallen into the ditch which he made. His trouble shall return upon his own head, and his violent dealing shall come down on his own crown. So here in that psalm just matches well with what we have in Proverbs 11 verse 8. We can also mention places such as Daniel chapter 6 and verse 24. It's a very similar situation of where you have these powerful men in government, in the Persian government, who want to destroy Daniel. And they want to destroy him because he is over them and he is honest, he has integrity, and they have to be honest as well, which is what they don't want to be. Because he's looking over their work. He's looking over their shoulder. So they're kind of governed themselves, which was the idea in all this. They plot to have him killed, and God saves him, just like he saved the Jews in Esther's day. God saves him, and those wicked men are thrown into the lion's den. The lions had been stopped. Their mouths had been kept closed. While Daniel stayed overnight in there. Well, these people really aren't going to be staying, they're not going to be living overnight. They're dying immediately once they're put into the den. We can also see in places like Acts chapter 18, specifically in verse 17, where you have the Jews who have rejected the gospel. They are hauling in Paul and others before the judgment seat there in Corinth. And you have a very good judge who says, this is none of my business. This has nothing to do with current law. Here in Corinth, it had nothing to do with it. But those Jews who brought them in are beaten there in front of the judgment seat. They're beaten right there. And while all the others, all the Christians, the followers of Christ, are released. Now, we come to verse 9. Verse 9 is connected to verse 8. With his mouth, the godless man would destroy his neighbor. Now, this particular Hebrew word can also mean hypocrite. It doesn't matter. The hypocrite would destroy his neighbor. But by knowledge, the righteous are delivered. Okay, so the godless man would destroy his neighbor by his mouth. Now, is that possible that a righteous man who is the victim might remain the victim and not delivered in this life? Well, but the answer to that would be yes. In 1 Kings chapter 21, we have Jezebel, who is plotting against Naboth because Ahab wants Naboth's property. And so she gets a particular town, the town where Naboth lives, and there's a plot to where Naboth is going to die. He's going to die as a blasphemer, is having said no blasphemy, having done nothing. It's these false witnesses, and she would destroy her neighbor in this. But by knowledge the righteous are delivered. So how does this come in? Well, we go back to verse 8. The righteous is delivered from trouble, and the wicked walks into it instead. All right? And also that of the righteousness of the upright delivers them. That's verse 6. So he's delivered nonetheless. He's delivered. Now, while Naboth died, and Stephen, Acts chapter 7, died, it's not saying that, and of course everything's going to be tempered by the rest of the Bible in the examples that we have. But while they died, were they in fact delivered? Well, yeah, they were, not from death by human beings. But the principle is still there. The principle is still there. By righteousness, that's how you're delivered. That's how you are kept from so much trouble and so many traps. And as we say, you cannot face the consequences of sins you never committed. You can't face those. They don't come around because it's cause and effect. If there was no cause, that is sinning, doing something wicked, there is no effect of it coming back around and being a consequence, being a punishment. You won't find that. Now, there are plenty of things that happen in life by way of nature, by way of happenstance, that are not a direct result of somebody sinning, as in that man's house was destroyed by a tornado, therefore he must be the worst sinner in town. Or that the tower fell on those men, 14 I think, and they must have been the most terrible sinners on the earth. Or this man was born blind. Is it because of his sin or his parents' sin? All right. Well, all of those are from a false idea. It's one easily that you could fall into. But it's the idea that because certain things have happened to certain people, that there must be some kind of sin associated with it. Well, not necessarily. Not necessarily. Someone who is just loaded with sins there's going to be consequences on them, and that's not a matter of any kind of misfortune or any kind of just natural mishap. It's a direct consequence, and it is the righteousness of the righteous delivers them. Okay, now we go to verse 10. When it goes well with the righteous, the city rejoices. And when the wicked perish, there are shouts of gladness. When David defeated Absalom, and he did not want Absalom dead, which made Joab very angry. Joab said, "You would rather the rest of us all died and Absalom stayed alive." But and he puts it into perspective. Absalom would have killed us all. He would have killed including you. He would have killed us all. And we have. Do you think that Jerusalem rejoiced when Absalom was no more, with all the wickedness he was doing in Jerusalem? Yeah, except for the very, very wicked who would have been, I suppose, been prospering by him. But otherwise, no, the city is rejoicing. They rejoice in that everything went well, right for the righteous, and the wicked have perished. The wicked are gone, and we don't have to deal with him or her anymore. We don't have to deal with that person anymore. And we have in Israel's history, we have Zimri, who was king for a total of 1 week. It was 7 days he was king. I'm sure there were shouts of gladness. Jezebel, a lot longer than a week. She dies in 2 Kings chapter 9. There would have been, and she has men working for her own personal men, who gladly throw her out the window. On the command of a prophet, she goes out. And that's the end of her. We also have Athaliah in 2 Kings 11. She was she exceeded Jezebel in that. Athaliah was exceedingly wicked, and she comes to her end. And there is this shout of gladness. I would also put in the sigh of relief that it's over. And it goes right back to that idea of the tempest. When the tempest is over, when that is done, go in chapter 10, verse 25. When the tempest passes, the wicked is no more, but the righteous is established forever. All right. The tempest passes, the wicked are no more, and everything's back to peace again. Everything is just speaking of pieces, you're just going to have to pick up the pieces from the what this person did, but they're gone, and that's a good thing. Everyone's happy about it. Now, verse 11, and this goes right into the power of the righteous, because the righteous have power. By the blessing of the upright, a city is exalted, but by the mouth of the wicked, it is overthrown. So the wicked could be in power, and you're just going to see that there is now going to be this weakness that just comes upon this city because of the corruption. Because God's not going to be part of that. God's not going to protect that city. And that there's just going to be this corruption that occurs, and it's going to go all the way through, and it's going to be overthrown. Now, this goes right into chapter 14, verse 34. Righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. And that is like with all of them, absolute. You can have a people that are very prosperous, and this is often the case, very prosperous, highly educated, highly developed civilization. It looks like they are just the big guy on the block as a civilization, or even as an empire. They are formidable. And then what happens? Sin is a reproach to any people. It doesn't matter how wealthy you are, you still fall. There's still a reproach to it. There's still a reproach. Sin is a reproach to any people, small or great. And we need to keep an eye on that and need to understand. I say that to myself as well. There are people that I watch on occasion, and they are writers, they are commentators, they are other things, and they want to have the world back the way it should be. Okay, back the way it should be. That is, removing the violence, removing the chaos, removing what's going on around here with such extraordinary wickedness that's out in the world. And I'm thinking, you are correct. You're absolutely correct. But there is one thing about the ones I'm thinking of. There's one thing about them. They're all gay. Now, you wouldn't know it by their speech. You wouldn't know it by the position that they're holding. But you have to understand, you're part of the problem too. You don't have the solution. You can't possibly have the solution. You are part of the problem. You just don't like where the problem has gone. That it goes right back to that level of corruption. I'll take it down to this level, but no further. Well, you've taken it down. All right, it doesn't need to be taken down at all. Matter of fact, you've taken it down to a large depth. You just have at least some sense to know that the world should be better than it is today. That there shouldn't be all of this nonsense that's going out. There shouldn't be. They don't like it, but they are not the solution. Now, there is another man. I don't know what he is religiously. I doubt this man is gay at all. But I simply don't know. But he is someone that said the only answer to any of this is going to be Christ. You've got to return to Christ. And this was an English man. And he's talking about because of they're on the, currently, they seem to be on the brink of a civil war. And he was saying the only way to stop this is to return to Christ. That's the only way. And he's the first one I ever heard, I'm talking about in the world, to ever say that. And he's right. Politics isn't going to do a thing. It's not going to do a thing. It's just going to, it may make matters worse. It may put a little bit of a limiter on it. It's like one man said, you vote for the least harm. It's like what one man said. But it's powerless. It's powerless. It takes Christ to do that. It takes Christ. So that you have in righteousness exalts a nation. And it doesn't matter how poor that nation is. That nation is exalted because of righteousness. It's exalted. It doesn't matter how backward the world would see them. It doesn't matter. The world doesn't, their exalting of someone is meaningless and usually complete opposite of what it should be. Having a love for some kind of wicked way. Having a love for something that is pointless. But righteousness exalts a nation. And we come back, by the blessing of the upright, a city is exalted. By the mouth of the wicked, it is overthrown. Now, going back to the power of the righteous, when Abraham speaks to God about, when God tells him that he's about to go destroy the 5 cities. He's about to destroy Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboam, and he's going to destroy Zoar, but Lot pleads for that one, and then later discovers how wicked it is and leaves. And really, it should have been destroyed. But we have Abraham knowing that he has family in Sodom. He knows it. And he speaks to God. What was the number that it ended up being? Now, and Abraham didn't go any lower. What was the number that God said, no, I won't destroy it even if there are this many righteous? It was 10. It was 10. With 10 people, Sodom would have been spared. With 10 people. As it turns out, only 4 really could be found, and one of those disobeyed God, turned around, told not to turn around, which, I could actually, I'm not justifying anything, but I could understand. You've got children back there, you've got daughters back there, maybe grandchildren back there, and here is this horrible sound, and no telling what the sky looked like. And it would have been just easy to have turned around and looked at that. But, okay.
That's a mother's instinct.
Yes, I wouldn't doubt that. But when God tells you not to do something, He means not to do it. Yeah. He means don't do it. And you get as far away from there, unless you just want to die along with it, you get away from there and you don't look back. Now, reading our verse again, by the blessing of the upright, a city is exalted, but by the mouth of the wicked it is overthrown. Balaam knew that. In Numbers chapter 25, Balaam knew what it would take for Jehovah to punish and be against Israel. He is told, matter of fact, he is paid, he is offered all these things if he would just curse Israel. And he wouldn't do it. He wouldn't do it. But the price kept getting higher, and the price kept getting higher, and as the cynical view is, and Balaam obviously fit, that everyone has their price. Well, Balaam had his price. And matter of fact, in the book of Revelation, he's called that prophet for hire. Okay. That, you pay him enough money, he'll do whatever it is. And he knew what it would take to where, and what did it take? It took getting Israel to sin. That's what it took. And then there was a terrible thing that was happening in Israel because God was now against them. And it was Balaam who is the one, and Balaam would eventually meet his end. They would eventually kill him, but not in Numbers 25. But that by the mouth of the wicked it is overthrown, and that's precisely what happened. Now, verse 12, whoever belittles his neighbor lacks sense, but a man of understanding remains silent. Now, we can go back to verse 9, with his mouth the godless man would destroy his neighbor. Verse 12, whoever belittles his neighbor lacks sense. And I'm reading from the English Standard Version. The New King James says, he who is devoid of wisdom, instead of belittles. He who is devoid of wisdom. But whoever, I have to say this, either one works well. Either rendering works well, and I'm going to argue one way or another. But a man of understanding remains silent. He's not going to be the one speaking out against. And we go to verse 13 because it's connected to verse 13 by proximity, but by subject. Whoever goes about slandering reveals secrets, but he who is trustworthy in spirit keeps a thing covered. Now, once again, English Standard says slandering. The New King James says a talebearer, which I think is more accurate. That a talebearer, because it matches with the second part of this proverb. He who is trustworthy in spirit keeps a thing covered. All right. He doesn't have to go revealing all the dirty laundry. He doesn't have to go out speaking about somebody. And of course, gossip is condemned. You have 1 Timothy 5:13 condemns gossip. Romans 1:39 speaks of a vicious people who, among other things, the New King James calls it whisperers, but it's gossiping is what it is. It's gossiping. And the thing about gossip, as the saying goes, is when the truth works better than any lie, use the truth. All right? When you can use the truth to gossip against somebody, you don't have to make anything up. But a trustworthy spirit keeps a thing covered. A man of understanding remains silent. This doesn't have to be known by everybody. It doesn't have to be known. Some things need to be kept quiet. All right, someone's dealing with it. Let them deal with it. Let them deal with it in peace. They don't need this spread all over town. That's the worst thing that could happen. You have something going on between a husband and wife. They might be able to settle it out on their own, but you going around spreading tales everywhere is not going to help. That's going to make matters worse. And now, they were going uphill to begin with as far as trying to solve this problem. You just made it longer and steeper, is what you did. And of course, this would go beyond husband and wife. This could be any sort of thing, and it's unnecessary. And women can be categorized as ones who will gossip, but I tell you, men will do it too. It's not limited to one or the other. Men will do it too. My brother would humorously, but sometimes I was wondering if it was half jokingly, would say, we were talking on the phone, he would say, do you have any dirt on anybody? And it was done in a humorous manner, whereupon I would either make something up and he would know, it would just be a ridiculous thing, or I'd just say, no, I don't have, have no dirt for today. But I saw relatives, aunts and uncles and others that they would just begin to talk about things that you really don't need to tell anybody about this. It would be best if they didn't know, and it'd be best if you didn't make them take a side as well in certain things. So we go to verse 14. Where there is no guidance, a people falls. But in the abundance of counselors, there is safety. All right, now this obviously would be an abundance of wise counselors. And that would be the implication. Not just, let's go ask a third grader what he thinks. Okay, now let's go ask the entire class of third graders what they think. Well, the answer may not have any more wisdom than the first one. All right, an abundance of counselors would necessitate that these are wise counselors, and they can begin to work to try to help, and in the process, help you. But what do you think the Bible does? The Bible is your best counselor. It's the best one. And you want to be devoid of knowledge, devoid of it, you don't have any counsel. You have no guidance whatsoever. It's not there. And you're limited to doing what you think is good, what is wise in your eyes, and that's it. 1 Kings 12 and verse 6, we see where Rehoboam goes, and he's got a problem. The kingdom is about to split. He goes first to those men who stood before his father Solomon. And they give an answer. And I can only assume from Scripture that answer would have worked. But he doesn't like that answer. But what I want to point out is that Solomon had advisors. As wise as he was, he evidently had advisors, because these were men who stood before Solomon in the same sort of job, in the same sort of respect, that they helped him with problems, that he spoke to them on their advice, because that's what Rehoboam is doing. And of course they give him a wise answer. He doesn't like that answer, so he goes to the younger men who basically the same age as himself, and asks them, and they give him a terrible answer. But that's the answer he wanted anyway. He just wanted somebody to justify what he was saying. I'll tell something about myself. I'll ask Catrice a question. What do you think about da 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 da? And she will say, no, I don't like that. And then I'll say, well, I think I'm going to do this anyway. And she said, why did you ask me? Why did you even ask? Well, I wanted you to justify my decision is what I wanted you to do, and you just won't do it. But I mean, yeah, okay. Does it? And in my defense, do I always have to take your advice? And the answer is yes. And so, but we come back to this: where there is no guidance, a people falls. But in the abundance of counselors, there is safety. Verse 15, whoever puts up security, we're changing subjects here. Whoever puts up security for a stranger will surely suffer harm. But he who hates striking hands in pledge is secure. And so what is this? First off, it's make no rash promises. Make no rash promises. And don't go in hand in some kind of agreement to where you're going to be held responsible for something to someone you don't even know. Okay? We have this word that gets shot around all the time. It's xenophobia. All right, and yeah, one can be xenophobic, and that means you're afraid of strangers. That means you're afraid of strangers. But do I have to implicitly trust any stranger? Well, that would be stupid. What were you taught as kids? Don't talk to strangers. You don't know who they are. You don't know what they're up to. And there are things you know nothing about. Don't talk to strangers. Now, you grow up and you learn that some people, they can't be trusted, but you don't know. Some people can be trusted, but you don't know. In this is whoever puts security for a stranger will surely suffer harm. You don't know that person. You simply don't know them. And this would go regardless of who the person is. A person may be a cousin, and you may not actually know this person very well, what they're likely to do. And it is best to stay away from such promises. Stay away from them. Don't make the agreement. Don't make the promise. And in speaking of rash promises, you have Herod, who offers his wife's daughter basically anything she wants up to half his kingdom. Anything she wants. All right, and he's surrounded by a bunch of friends. And she comes back and she says, I want the head of John the Baptist on a silver. I want his head on a platter. I didn't expect that. All right, it's time to now go back and say, wait, I didn't say I'd murder for you. But that was a rash promise. That was a rash promise because he didn't have to do it. And I actually knew a man, he's a preacher, I actually knew a man that respected Herod for keeping his promise. I don't. There's certain things that, wait a minute, we got to put in some, I was under the impression you were sane when I gave this to you, okay? I was under the misapprehension, the misunderstanding that you would actually ask for something that was lawful to do. But this is murder, and it's murdering a prophet. I'd prefer not to do that. But this is a rash promise that, and because of the men around him, he does it. All right. He wants to impress them, so he goes ahead and he kills John the Baptist. Now we come to verse 16. A gracious woman gets honor, and violent men get riches. Now, I'm going to read from the New King James. A gracious woman retains honor, but ruthless men retain riches. Now, I'm going to put the New King James on this one because it matches the subjects that we're about to discuss. Actually, the subject's already been broached. The subject's already been there, and it is the wicked and their wealth. That's already been there. But we're coming to a point of being giving, being generous, being benevolent, being compassionate. And ruthless men will keep their riches. They will do it. But and we're getting to, just going down to verse 24, one gives freely, yet grows all the richer. Another withholds what he should give and only suffers want. Whoever brings blessings will be enriched, and one who waters will himself be watered. All right, that goes hand in hand with these. They're just separated by a little bit, but it goes hand in hand with a theme that is here. And yeah, I think the New King James has it on this particular verse. And we just need to understand, going back to chapter 1 of where Solomon's son is warned against these wicked men, violent men, who, they're after theft, and if it takes murder, it's murder. They're after getting as much wealth as they can gain by whatever means they can do it, as long as it doesn't require a whole lot of work and honesty's not involved. Because they're not that concerned with honesty. Honesty doesn't give you wealth quite as quickly as dishonesty does. But honesty goes along with integrity, and they don't have that anyway. But verse 17, a man who is kind benefits himself, but a cruel man hurts himself. Okay, I'm sorry that, I misplaced this verse. That verse 16 and verse 17 work hand in hand. A gracious woman gets honor, but violent men, I'm going to read. A gracious woman retains honor, but ruthless men retain riches. A man who is kind benefits himself, but a cruel man hurts himself. This would all be that of being compassionate, of being giving. That's what it is. And we can look no further than Nabal. It was Abigail's first husband. And I just can't imagine parents naming this newborn baby Fool. That's what his name means. That is his given name. His name is Fool. And that's when mom and daddy didn't like you too well. I don't know. Maybe they are the fools. I can't answer that. But he was named properly, and they even say he was named properly. But someone like Nabal, who has benefited from David and his men, finds no compassion to help them at all. None at all, and he only hurts himself. Now, David intended on killing him, but he doesn't because of Abigail. And this, I'm going to tell you, the power that women have in de-escalating a situation it's phenomenal, because women can. They can de-escalate things more so than a man could. And now, a man may be able to stop somebody through another means, and can also be part of de-escalating too. But she truly de-escalated, and she knew what it took, and that is to supply what David asked for. That's it. And apologize for her husband. And that's what it took. And David doesn't kill anybody. They were about to just slaughter that household. But that was that. There is now peace. And a gracious woman retains honor. Yeah, and that would be a gracious woman, Abigail. And but this cruel man hurt himself. Now we come to verse 18. The wicked earn deceptive wages, but one who sows righteousness gets a sure reward. All right, so this concerns the wicked and their wealth. And it's deceptive wages. It's wages that is not going to get them very much. It's also wages that bring in their own sorrow, bring in their own concern, that there'll be no peace of mind, really. There'll be no peace of mind. There'll be no real ease, because this is as we would say, what would we say? Ill-gotten gains. There it is. These are ill-gotten gains, and that there's nothing comforting about it at all. These are deceptive wages, and it'll vanish anyway. But the one who sows righteousness, well, there is something that's secure. There's something that is eternal. And God backs that one. God doesn't back the dollar. God doesn't back the euro or the British pound or the Zambian kwacha or anything else. He doesn't back gold. But he does back this. He backs that reward. And that's the only sure thing we have on this earth. Okay, I appreciate everybody being here. And hopefully we can continue in chapter 11 next week. Thank you.